this is a tool that can be really beneficial for all patients, starting at even 9 years old or 8 years old, whenever you see your first patient. So
Nice.
these are definitely the cutting edge technology, innovative, revolutionary, all those buzzwords that you can possibly think of. This is definitely the future of orthodontics.
Hello there, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Orthopreneurs Podcast. Today, we've got a really great person here, great personality, great human being, and she's going to talk a little bit about a really cool product. But before I do that, Sima, welcome. How are you?
I'm wonderful, Glenn. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. You know, I got to get this out of the way right now because I know you by three names, right? First, a married, a maiden, and a. How do you like to be referred to as?
I think Dr. Yakoby Epstein is great because it gives a little bit of where I come from and a little bit of where I am now with my husband, who's also an orthodontist.
Yeah, so we've got Sima Yakoby Epstein here today. I didn't want to make the faux pas of calling her by the wrong name, but Sim and I are well acquainted. We know each other well, and we'll get more into that later on. But if you don't mind, like I always like to start, can you do me a favor and tell everybody a little bit about your background and how you kind of ended up getting into ortho and what brought you to this point in time today?
Wonderful. I love telling this story because I'm a first generation born immigrant. My family is from Tbilisi, Georgia.
You don't sound like you have a Southern accent.
No, right. Georgia. We're much known for sort of living and believing the American dream, and my father being a taxi driver and really empowering us with all the tools to be able to achieve success really kind of set the stage for my two brothers and I. So that's kind of the Neil Diamond playing in the background, coming to America every day, dad at home. And from that came, going into tennis, playing tennis tournaments, really developing character and learning about discipline and motivating yourself to be better and setting yourself up for success. So one of the things that happened early on in life was I got into a very bad car accident. And that led me to dentist's office, basically from the age of 12 to even still now as an adult.
Wow.
And that really was life-changing because the orthodontist kind of looked a little bit like Santa Claus. And he said to me, you know what, great things will come from you. And I believed. And so that kind of led me into orthodontics. It makes it all the more powerful, given that I've been through so much as a patient. And now being able to be the orthodontist, looking at a patient, the compassion is just immense.
That's amazing. You have such a great story. I'm sorry about the accident, of course, obviously. Yeah. And I feel like, I'm going to pull a name out from the past that you probably don't even know, but Yakov Smirnov, you remember? Yeah. What a country. Right? I don't know what part of the former Soviet Union he came from, but he made a whole career around, those three words. But, a lot of the people I look up to are first generation Americans. I mean, Gary Vaynerchuk, who's been a big influence in my life, always tells a story about coming over from, I don't know, I think it was Ukraine he came over from when he was 4 years old, and working in his father's, his father wasn't a professional, just like your dad. And I think there's such incredible lessons to learn when you see a person come to the country and truly live the American dream. So kudos to you. It's always so heartwarming when I hear stories like this. But tell me about your tennis. You just threw it in there like a little dash of, and tennis. Yeah. Did you play competitively?
Yeah. So we sort of grew up only in America sort of dream. And with that, my father always felt like the tennis players were always the wealthiest of the bunch, or they had the Wimbledon and the US Opens. And he said, that's where you guys should be. You should be playing tennis. So we lived across the street from the projects, and he would take us every day to play on the wall. And then one day he took me on a 10-speed bike on the highway to get to the US National Tennis Center.
And you rode a bike on the highway?
Bike on the highway. I was sitting on the seat and my dad was standing. And I just remember being like, okay, only in America.
So this was in Queens, I assume, in Flushing.
Yes, in Flushing. So that's where my sort of journey began, with really believing that tennis was sort of the way to accomplish things and get into a great school and be able to develop and succeed in whatever other capacity I wanted to.
Nice. And so you ended up playing college tennis?
Tennis. And then shortly after, I really focused on becoming an orthodontist and really focusing on being the best orthodontist that I could be.
Wow. So did you play tennis at Penn?
No, I played tennis at SUNY Albany, and then I went to dental school at UPenn. And then I did a residency at Cornell Presbyterian. I worked as the cosmetic dentist in New York City for 2 years. I taught aesthetic dentistry at NYU. And then Van Arsdale and Dr. Chung got me back to UPenn Ortho, where I graduated.
Very nice. Your story is amazing. I just have to say that, Sima.
So much.
It really is inspiring, to hear the story that you say with a smile, by the way, of being on a 10-speed bike on the highway, probably the Grand Central Parkway is my guess.
Yes, that's exactly right.
You're on a 10-speed bike on the GCP, going there. Like, I can't even imagine how many people were honking and hated your guts. And for those who don't, I think there's a bike path along the side of the highway that you could have taken just as easily. But seriously, that's an amazing story. And the fact that you played tennis, not because it was a great sport for health or because there was a court nearby, but because your father equated playing tennis to the American dream.
That's
right?
exactly.
That is, but at the end of the day, like, the really weird, funny, strange part is his vision came true, right? Like, you for different reasons, but the fact is, if it wasn't for tennis, you might not have been at Albany. Had it not been for Albany, you might not have got into dental school. Like, the whole story is really amazing. I got to tell you, it just resonates.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
My pleasure. So you come out of Penn, Ortho. What year was that?
I think it was 2007.
So you come out of Penn Ortho and you went into practice, right, in Manhattan, right? You were in New York City. You practiced for what, 8 years?
Yes. So it's a funny story. When I was working as a cosmetic dentist, I had just gotten into UPenn Ortho, and I was sitting across from Dr. Jen Salzer at a meeting with tons of different specialists. And within 2 minutes of meeting her, she said, "Who are you?" And I said, "I'm Sima." And she said, "I'm actually going to orthodontic school. I'll be back in 2.5 years." And she's like, "Here's my number." And she's like, "You call me when you graduate and you have a job." I said, "Okay." So my dad was sitting next to me back then. We had like a pay phone. So we go ahead and call her, and Dr. Salzer and Mark Lemshin interviewed me. And it was the first and basically best job I ever had as an orthodontist. So I'm very grateful to them.
It's amazing. Again, how life puts us in certain positions. That's beautiful. And so you worked for 8 years. You took a little bit of time off to help raise kids, right? Very common. And now in your sort of next career as a former cosmetic dentist, well, not current, you're a current orthodontist, but as a former full-time practicing clinical orthodontist, you're now an entrepreneur, right?
Absolutely. And I think I'm so proud of being able to have the education and the experience that I have, to have met so many incredible doctors and mentors, and then to be able to take that knowledge and put it all together to become an entrepreneur and really, see what we can change as orthodontists.
Yeah, it's amazing. As an entrepreneur, as an orthodontist, you can help patients. As an entrepreneur, you can help orthodontists, right? It's so different. So let's talk a little bit about your entrepreneurial venture. What is it exactly that you've created and continue to create?
So OrthoNu, I think, is sort of a pioneer in a category that doesn't currently exist in the orthodontic industry. And what I feel is important is that we are partners with orthodontists and also our patients. And so I've developed a category of products that help patients be able to take care of themselves in between office visits. So self-care solutions that are professional grade, that are able to help the patient after they leave the office, for orthodontists to feel more relaxed, knowing that their emergency visits have a proper appointment time and not rushed in at 3:00 with every other kid after school before they get to sports. So it's a more systematic approach to not only creating a pipeline for patients to be able to have, now being in a sort of new position as more innovative, more directed towards their pain points, but also orthodontists having a more scheduled way of dealing with emergencies and feeling comfortable that they're really giving the patients their best experience.
Yeah. So the goal is of OrthoNu, by the way, spelled N-U, not spelled N-E-W for anybody else asking there. And I do want to give a disclosure at this point. I am a financial investor and on the advisory board, but only because I believe in the product. And your mission really is to help orthodontists reduce the amount of care that they need to provide to patients in the office that could otherwise been done at home, right?
Exactly. And more to that is, there's a series of pain points that patients experience inevitably, being in braces or aligners. Those are things that we will never change. But what we can change is that when we know these problems arise, rather than giving them sort of MacGyver antics and having them scurry through the house to find tweezers and toenail clippers. We have an established sort of prestigious way of creating these tools for them that is orthodontist approved and patient accepted. And it creates a sort of stress-free life that's more empowering for both the orthodontist and the patient.
Right on. Nice. So let's talk about the products that you've got. Tell me a little bit about, I know there's more than one, right? Yeah. I think there's a bunch, but let's start at the top of the list. Give us, your favorite, number one, most important thing right now.
Yeah. So I believe our hero product is Tweaks, and it's sort of a Swiss Army tool for the patient in braces or in aligners. And the reason I started with that category is I think emergency pain discomfort is really what we experience as patients when we first get braces or aligners. And so we really have our first couple of products focused on helping them with those pain points. So Tweaks is a very cool tool that everybody, I think, that has looked at as an orthodontist has said, oh my God, that's amazing. Where has that been? It's so necessary. And essentially, it's a stainless steel tool that essentially is the highest quality, and it delivers the ability to solve all the pain points that you have when you have braces emergency. For example, if you have a pokey wire or a broken bracket, or you're unable to get an elastic on, if you have anything that's impinging into your oral mucosa and it's too sharp, you now have an actual diamond file to help with, adjusting for that. Or the aligner patient, it's hard when these girls are breaking their nails trying to get the trays off, or they're having food caught between their teeth all the time and they're embarrassed to walk around. So now you have these 4 tools as well in this Invisalign or aligner, any of those types of products that can help with the patient to carry it around all day. And they're basically changing the way that they use and treat themselves in aligners or braces.
Yeah, so you've hit a couple of different products here, and I want to go back to one. So when we talk about Tweaks in terms of for wire patients, you talked about a diamond file, but there's a lot more to it than that. And again, I'm trying to tease this out because I want people to hear specifically about wires. Let's not talk about aligners for right now. What exactly is this Swiss Army knife product? Because I know what it is, but I want you to say what it is.
Sure. So Tweaks is a Swiss Army tool that's used for braces, and it has 4-in-1 tools. So the first one is an actual distal end cutter. That's a flush distal end cutter. And as we know, it cuts and it holds the wire. So it's very safe, and it's only meant to cut the wire, not any other nails or any other crevices in your bodies, just the wire.
And it's a 90-degree cutter. So Correct. It's important. People are going to ask, what makes it different than, say, a nail clipper that I could just go buy at the store? This is that product that at least I thought of years ago, that many of you might have thought about, that we just never went ahead and made, that legitimately is a wire holder and cutter at 90 degrees so that a patient can go home and use it. This is not meant to replace a dental instrument or anything like that. But if someone has a pokey wire, and you have a video on your website that shows people how to use it, right, or give it to them in some other method, they can actually clip a wire that's a little bit long. So that's number one, right? So you've got your distal end cutter. What else does it have?
We also have a diamond file, like I mentioned. Essentially, if you have a ceramic bracket that's broken or anything that's poking, that's irritating the mucosa, you can easily, shave it down so it's not irritating. There's also a dental pick, which is also used for self-ligating brackets. It's the actual tool that's used to open the doors, so that if you do have a wire, a bracket that's loose, a mom is usually worried about a child aspirating the bracket. Now you can safely remove it, whether it's a conventional bracket with an elastic or it's a self-ligating bracket. This tool is essentially used to remove it, safely put it away, and bring it to the next office visit. It also removes debris interproximally. The third tool, or the fourth tool, is the sickle-shaped tool, which helps with elastic wear. So a lot of people don't have that dexterity, some adults, some teenagers, and this helps to be able to put on class 2 or class 3 elastics, surgical elastics. So it really covers the sort of gamut of what you go through during braces and being able to help with those.
Well, and so we've got that. And we've got a tool for aligners, right? You, not me.
Yes.
You've got a tool for aligners that helps, essentially, like you mentioned, help take it in and out, help smooth off rough edges, and do all those great things. And so essentially the whole goal of these two things is, look, there are going to be emergencies you're going to have to see, right? Something weird happens and they feel uncomfortable dealing with it. At least this allows you to take that percentage, whatever it may be for your practice, off the books. I can only come in after school and it's 4:00 and everybody's going crazy. And And I think it's a great idea. But I want to also dive into some of the other products that you've got, because that was when I first learned about your company and got really interested. There was some really cool stuff about, preventative medicine and what have you that I really, really liked. And, talk a little bit before you get into anything else about how you view as a company and as a person, the role of preventative medicine in helping orthodontists.
Absolutely. So I just want to touch on one thing before we get to preventive medicine. The
Sure.
categories that I sort of created was obviously the way that you experience 2-3 years of treatment. So the first one we addressed was emergency pain discomfort. The second one, as you know, when patients get into braces and aligners, there's always a problem with oral hygiene and halitosis. And at the end, when you get your braces off, there's always demineralizations and white spots, and parents are always confused as to what happened those 3 years. So the whole idea of what OrthoNu stands for is really empowering patients to understand that oral health is equal to overall health. And the mouth is essentially the mirror to the body. And we as orthodontists are responsible to make sure that our patients carry out the best oral health that they can. So all the line kind of 14 patents pending, 8 trademarks, 18 proprietary products kind of create this pipeline to be able to create this new golden standard of care. But what comes at the end of this, which I think is the mic drop, is what you said, Glenn, the preventive medicine innovation. So I went back to University of Pennsylvania, where I went to dental school and ortho school, and I linked up with Dr. Ku Shu Yang from Penn Innovation Center, University of Pennsylvania Dental and Orthodontic and Medical Schools. And we are creating 2 collaborations to be able to help with a new way of creating a database for patients and doctors to be able to utilize the mouth and use the unbound hormone in saliva that's currently there, that's linked to bacteria and disease states way before blood work and way before x-rays. So it's a really interesting way of revolutionizing the way we as orthodontists are able to treat patients, not only by helping them throughout the journey of orthodontics, but also creating an understanding about what's going on in their mouth is really important for us to diagnose early on. And so we're creating those vehicles now.
Right on. Well, let's get to it and let's talk about it a little bit, because again, anything that can help prevent is really important. And that's what I really wanted to have this podcast episode about, was prevention, right? Like, how often every day do I have patients come in my office where I'm having the 8th conversation with them about brushing? I'm having the 8th conversation with them about something health-wise. We've got general dentists who, let's be honest, many of them want to throw the orthodontist right under the bus. It's all the orthodontist's fault, right? Like, your brackets are causing your decalcifications. Not really. It's your crappy home care that's causing it. And so talk to me a little bit about this stuff, because I think there's some tools and things you have that address that conversation in a really good way.
Yes, absolutely. And I agree with you. I think it's really important for all of us in the industry to understand that we are all a part and a piece of this puzzle. So whether the patient is, doing well and their oral hygiene is, amazing throughout, then we have basically made them progress to a whole nother level so that they can avoid, sort of disease states that are inevitable, like cavities and periodontal disease, which we already know that are linked to systemic diseases. So my research and my science-driven brain has always been to understand, the bacteria that is in your mouth at the very main level, right? You have the process of halitosis, and many people are sort of magically inspired by where is this halitosis coming from? And there's so many components to it. But one of the things we're creating is really to understand where it's coming from, so that as a patient, you have the ability to know, is it coming from your gum line? Is it coming from your tongue? Is it coming from a cavity? So these sort of gram-negative, gram-positive bacteria are sort of demystified for you as a lay person and being in a patient. So that's one part of it, right? That gives us more access to our patients to be able to prevent a lot of things that could potentially go wrong over the course of 3 years of treatment. On the second level, it's the analyzer detector, which again, science has already proven out. There's tons of bacteria that are linked to certain disease states. They all exist in the mouth. So they've all been verified, whether it's linking the bacteria in your saliva to neurological disorders like Alzheimer's, like cancer, gastrointestinal disorders, obviously heart disease, as we know. We have all this information, but there's no economic way of being able to source and prevent early on, and being able to understand where or how it's happening. So the idea is that this sort of vehicle will be a way of having dentists, orthodontists be able to create a database for patients early on. So it's something that will collect evidence of what bacteria exists in their mouth and being able to prevent any of the disease states we just mentioned, specifically oral cancers that we know about. And this will help to basically change the industry in the way that we help patients early on.
Yeah, so I mean, this is the part to me. I love the idea of tweaks. I love the idea of being able to free up free time for orthodontists, right? Again, my mantra is helping orthodontists lead more profitable, lower stress lives. So if I can take out emergency patients from their calendar through your product, then I'm thrilled with that. The part that really intrigues me here is that orthodontists either are full of it, they're full of BS, or they're going to want to dive deeper, because every single day on every post, oh, I love making a difference in my patients' lives. Oh, I went into this so I could change lives. Well, here's your opportunity to change lives. Here's your opportunity to objectively be able to help people reduce their risk based upon stuff in their mouth that we see them as gatekeepers on a regular basis. And so, again, if people are really interested in helping change people's lives, that's what called to me about this product, is that the opportunity. So right now, tell me, what is it called, right? And how does it work? And last but not least, I know there's a lot. What is it called? How does it work? And is there real science behind this? Or is this kind of like certain devices that or things that have come into orthodontics where people swear that they work scientifically, but there really wasn't science? It was a case report or something.
Right. So what they're called currently, we have names for them that we are not able to say right now, but they are real science-driven based research that we are doing. It already exists in terms of, there is a breathalyzer out there that's based on breath. That is really not the best way to measure somebody's breath or halitosis, because it's just invaluable in terms of having somebody breathe differently, not having a whole, the amount of saliva or the amount of breath perfectly on the actual thing that currently exists. So this is a new way of handling a swab with saliva that goes into a machine that is able to really detect gram-negative and gram-positive bacteria. So this is a vehicle that we're currently working on for the breathalyzer. So it actually is something that's already out there in terms of science, where the actual bacteria is linked to certain breath or certain disease states, but there's no vehicle that actually measures this in the way that we are creating it. So that's really amazing. The second part, the analyzer, is basically now being developed as well. It'll be a 2.5-year, 3-year research project, which at the end we'll be able to commercialize. And essentially, it again is already scientifically proven that the bacteria is already coordinated with certain systemic diseases that we discussed, and now being able to put into a vehicle that matters most to orthodontists to be able to help them with cancers or to be able to help them with periodontal disease. This is a tool that can be really beneficial for all patients, starting at even 9 years old or 8 years old, whenever you see your first patient. So
Nice.
These are definitely the cutting edge technology, innovative, revolutionary, all those buzzwords that you can possibly think of. This is definitely the future of orthodontics.
So just to be clear, because I know we danced around it a little bit, is this a product that's going to allow people the opportunity to come into an ortho office, take a swab, put it in the machine, and of course, detect the bacteria that cause bad breath and be able to attack it from that perspective, but to potentially act as a screening tool for things like heart disease, for things like cancer, for things like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or other kinds of diseases that are out there? Is that what we're really talking about here, is to create a saliva-based test for genetic potential?
Absolutely. And then if you think about where it starts with the orthodontic offices, but then you think about the specialties that it can also manifest into. So it really starts with us, but then it's endless in terms of where and how far this can go. And creating a database, it would really benefit so many doctors and so many establishments and organizations and dental schools. So yes, that's exactly right, Glenn. That's what we're doing.
It's pretty amazing. And so for an orthodontist, so right now that's not fully available, correct?
Correct. That will be available to commercialize and be ready to sell in probably 3 years, because it takes time to develop and, proof of concept. And all the things necessary before it comes out.
It's amazing. But in the meantime, the
Yes.
other product, you have the tweaks, which allows you to help free up time, and you've got some at-home products to help with prevention, correct?
So yeah, so as we were saying, the categories that we have developed, these 18 products, it basically creates the new goodie bag. You're no longer going to carry things in a little plastic bag. You're going to have these cases that you're going to be able to pick and choose what it is that you really need. Starting with the orthodontic office, we're going to start with tweaks. We're going to incorporate that as part of our standard of care. And then we have comfort strips to be able to replace wax. We have mouth aid to help with the ulcerations that inevitably happen with patients' and braces and aligners. We have a new way of inspiring children to brush teeth in a scientific driven way that we all know as orthodontists is the correct way. So we've created those types of tools to be able to inspire and really help through the oral hygiene and halitosis component. We have a full line of functional ingredients that patients can use all throughout their treatment, any time of day, whether you're a child or a parent, you're always concerned about what's in the products, but these are things that are all natural ingredients that are known to help patients when they're in a constant inflammatory state, when they're in pain. We also have a new spin on chews, which is very exciting, something that's never been developed before that I think will really be on trend to patients in braces as well as patients in aligners. And we have a full line of candies and chocolates that are great for the children and adults. We have a lot of inspiring things for the adults and the teenagers, whether it be the flavors or the way that it's packaged. It's definitely going to be a very big industry leader in really bringing it all full circle as orthodontists to really be able to create the new way of treating patients.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool. Like I said, I think, the grand vision of having a diagnostic test in the office that we can run as orthodontists and as dentists to help with genetic problems is remarkable. And I can't wait to see where that goes in the next few years. In the meantime, the idea of giving some sort of emergency alleviating device to people, to me, that was huge. And again, the products that you've created as a goodie bag, I think are amazing. The replacement for wax, for one, people have to see it and they'll get it in their hands at some point and be able to see how it works. It's not silicone. It's not think of it more like Teflon tape that covers things in a very, very sort of amazing way rather than something, silicone based. And again, the idea here is that doctors have this stuff to be able to give to their patients as a differentiator in their practice, right? So that when someone comes to their office and moms get together and talk, the discussion is, yeah, your kid has a pokey wire, you got to go into the practice, look what I've got. Where'd you get that? And that's the point, is to not only ease up the orthodontist side, but to help, drive more business, hopefully through reward, if you will. Like, anybody can get X, look, we give them Y. And so, I love what you're doing, Sima. That's why I had you on here. I love the discussion about the future of orthodontics being so much more than just straightening teeth, which is in itself amazing, but the ability for us to actually help people diagnostically through genetic testing, so to speak, to see what's coming down the turnpike and help them. Is there anything else you wanted to add? Anything I missed?
I think it's important that I want to drive that OrthoNu is something that doesn't exist right now. And I think by being an orthodontist and being a patient for so long, I kind of married the two and created something that I think will change the way that we as orthodontists schedule our days, the way patients really are able to take care of themselves and have a healthy mouth throughout treatment. And I think just like every big basketball team, or Michael Jordan always says, it's not just the individual, it's always about the team. So I want all the orthodontists to know that we're together in this and we can really make a big difference, not only in our industry, but also in our patients. So let's do it.
Amen. I can't do better than that. If people want to learn more about the products or tweaks or anything, how do they best find out?
So you can go to orthonu.com and you can essentially read all about tweaks, about our bio, about our story. We will also be displaying our tweaks for braces and aligners at Orthopreneurs September 8th through 10th. We will be offering a 10% discount on the first 150 of tweaks for braces and aligners. So there's more to come about that. Very excited to be able to debut and launch at Orthopreneurs with you.
Yeah, it should be great. I'm really looking forward to it. And so I want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for sharing your story. I think it's an amazing one that's still being written. And just thank you for being an entrepreneurs and being able to support us from that perspective. And just again, just keep doing what you're doing, Sima. Thank you for everything you're contributing to the profession, and appreciate you being here today.
Thank you so much, Glenn. Always a pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much.